This is Spiritual Mamas Podcast. We're a couple of mamas out here just trying to raise kids, make it through a work day, and navigate mental health issues, all while going through a spiritual awakening, and we thought we'd take you with us. So grab your favorite cozy drink and let's chat.
Hello, welcome back to Spiritual Mamas Podcast. I'm Aericka.
And I'm Kim.
And today we are talking about what we're doing to foster our spirituality, like our spiritual practice, kind of on a day-to-day basis, and how we got there.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Sure. This was something that kind of took a little while for me to figure out, and I think it's an evolving thing. I play with it from time to time, but I do certain things now that kind of keep me on track. There was definitely a lot of maybe background in researching different types of things, but a lot of that led me back to like meditation, which I struggle with still. It's
same.
It's not something that I do. I'll do it here and there, but not on a daily basis. The things that I do, though, every day is engaging with journaling, mindfulness, and being really intentional. And that can look different. Each of those things can look different every day. So like for journaling, for instance, I will do this every morning, and sometimes it's about how I'm feeling that morning. How did I wake up? What energy am I feeling that day, or what I want to bring into the day? Sometimes it is what has happened in the day before, especially if what happened the day before was of note, something impactful.
Like, do you work through that in the journal, or you just write about it and think about it later? What is that? How to use that?
Because I journal in the morning, it is normally a place for me to further process. Mm-hmm. I've had my emotions. I've probably talked to somebody about it if it was something impactful. So the journaling allows me to organize my thoughts. It allows me to sometimes take it a step further, make a decision of something that I want to do, if anything. So yeah, if something big has happened, usually I'm teasing out the details in my journaling. And then other times I'm not journaling about those things. I don't have the thing at the top of my mind. I don't have something that I'm like, oh, what am I going to write about? What's going on here? So sometimes I'll just set a timer on my phone, 5 minutes. Usually it's about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I will do what I call stream of consciousness writing. Okay. So anything that comes to mind, any thought, any emotion, any experience, anything. It could be the color blue. It could be, I don't have a thing to think about. I don't have a thing to write. It doesn't have to make sense. In those cases, it's not about sentence structure. It's not about working through something. That I usually use for the purpose of clearing out my head. I have maybe random thoughts, and especially with anxiety, I can go from one thing to another to another.
For sure.
Yeah, as you well know. Yeah. When that anxiety wheel gets spinning, it's just out there. So, if I don't know where to put my focus, then I will do something like that.
If something comes up, I don't know, you read it afterwards, you're like, oh, I didn't even think I was thinking that. Would you then meditate, or would you write more about it?
I think it depends on my day. If I am doing my stream of consciousness and I'm, realizing oh, that was on my mind and I didn't realize that was on my mind. If I have a busy day, I will like to think that I'm going to meditate about it, but realistically I probably won't. Mm-hmm. I will probably journal about it more.
Yeah.
And pick that specific thing. So sometimes that my journaling practice in the morning can be like 2 minutes, and this is a quick, let me get it down. And other times it could be 15-20 minutes, depending on, if something like that comes up.
Do you always set, like, have like a set time that you want to do? Every morning I make sure I get up at this time, so I have like X amount of time to do this. Or are you like me, like seat of the pants and hope I get up?
Yeah. I don't set aside a specific amount of time unless I'm using that stream of consciousness, because then I'm using a timer. But I know that I have time every morning. I know that I am up and getting ready for my day at least 2.5 hours before my day starts. So I have time if it's going to be a longer practice. But sometimes it's not a longer practice, and it just is that. Let's get it out and get it going. Sometimes it's what I dreamt about. Sometimes it's especially if I have a confirmation of, this thing has been on my mind, and then somebody talks about it, or an opportunity presents itself, or I am clearly seeing a sign of something, then I'm absolutely journaling about that.
You're an awesome journaler. You have multiple journals for different things, right? Like,
I do. It's a little chaotic, really.
I mean, I feel like brain stuff is in general, but yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels overwhelming for me just because I'm like, oh, I have this thing that I want to journal about, and it could go in this journal or that journal.
Yeah.
So where do I put it? And I have been guilty of starting new journals for that. It's like, why are you doing that?
This now. This is this journal because I had this thought.
Yeah, I am. Chaotically organized, I would say.
That works.
That's how I would put it. So, but that is a practice that I use every day. And then the other things that I had mentioned that I try to make space for are being mindful and intentional. Very intentional with how I'm showing up, whether it's at work, how I'm showing up for people at work, with family, with myself. Am I in a space to show up? If not, what do I need to do about it? If I am, how do I want to carry that energy through? That moment?
Yeah, and in our your line of work and then my current line of work as well, like you have to be able to show up. I mean, and you have to process like what you've heard through the day and all that stuff. So definitely got to keep yourself in a space.
Yeah.
Or at least get there.
Yeah. I think I find that I am, depending on what it is, depending on like how big it is, of what I've gone through or experienced or whatever, I try to compartmentalize and like visualize myself putting that down. Okay, this is something that I don't need to carry with me through the rest of my day. I'm going to visualize myself putting it down so that I can keep going and not carry it with me.
I like that.
Because we don't always realize what we're carrying with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as healthcare workers, I feel like we're like the compartmentalizing queens and kings because, like from being a nurse, like you go in like one room, person's got like something crazy going on, and the next minute they're happy, and then it's like you have to just kind of keep going from room to room to room and show up for that person each time, and it's a little crazy, but I like that, like putting it, like visually putting it down. I like that.
That's something that I guess I've maybe not always done it in that way, but I've always tried to do it. But I think in that specific way it's become more clear to me that works for me in this spirituality journey. Just recognizing that I can't achieve my goals if I'm holding on to XYZ. And even on the small scale, like if I'm hangry, which I am known to get hangry.
Me too.
Yeah. Like I might bite your head off, and I don't want to do that. So let me be more aware of where I'm at, what I'm carrying with me, what I need in order to make this connection, have this conversation, make that decision, figure out what comes next, all of the above.
I think like as moms, we just kind of just like throw it in the back and run with it, you know, because we just have to keep going. I mean, we both have like older kids now, so it's not quite the same, but like as when they were little, but still, I feel like you kind of carry that.
Yeah.
And having to learn to not do that again is like a whole process.
I 100% agree. And I think one of the things that we don't really realize is how when we're in that state of being moms for young kids, we have to keep running. And so we learn to do that out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a conscious practice. It is you have to get up and get this kid from there to here,
Right.
and you have to make sure that you have everything ready, and you can't forget that, you know, this other kid might need this, or that you have this responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes an automatic thing that we do, and we don't put a lot of thought into how can we be more intentional with it, or how can we get through these moments. But because of that, we fast forward X amount of years, and now we have older kids, and we don't necessarily need that. But now it's a conscious effort to break out of it.
Right. Exactly.
To stop a process. So it takes a lot more work after the fact to, I don't want to say fix, because it's not something that needs to be fixed, but just to change that wiring.
It's not not necessarily fight or flight, but it's kind of the same situation, you know, the same like go, because it just has to happen. And I think that part of why we're both kind of in this situation too, like the spiritual awakening now, is again because our kids are older. We do have time-ish to be able to reflect. I mean, my youngest is 16. I still have to know what he's doing, where he's at.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, I can tell him go make ramen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not like 100% like needing to be on top of him at all times. So, so I think, I wonder if more people, now I'm in midlife, more people in like midlife start to have this awakening, or do more people like younger before they have kids, and then, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if there's like stages of this. Like some people, if they're lucky enough to have these type of awakenings early, and then they're able to kind of just carry on them throughout life, or whether more people tend to start having them later in life.
That's a good question. I'd be really interested. Maybe we should do some research on that.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
This is mildly off topic. Maybe we talk about this later, but is that a lot of other cultures see like midlife, like menopause, as a rebirth, a reawakening for women to like step into their womanhood at that point, like, or like kind of out of the womanhood and into like this next phase of life and rebirth, a renewal.
Yeah.
Whereas in Western cultures, we tend to be like, oh God, like this is happening. So I don't think that kind of speaks to that, that thought process.
I love that you brought that up and that it's off topic. It ties in really nicely with just my thought process on this, because one of the things that is part of my process on a daily basis is trying to connect with what resonates with me. I want to say culturally, because of my history, my family's history, background. A lot of my family comes from Puerto Rico. And so there's always this question of, are you Puerto Rican enough? Are you American enough? Are you enough?
Right.
So one of the things that I do is trying to like do a little bit of research and figure out like, well, what would my ancestry look like as far as spirituality is concerned? What would they be focusing on and practicing? And so you bringing that up is like, that resonates with me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going through a process right now, probably perimenopause, but but going through a process where it's like I am discovering, rediscovering, rebuilding myself. And I had a child young, and so I wasn't able to do these things earlier, and I didn't have that youth. You know, I was pregnant at 16. You don't have the privilege of being a teenager. You have to be a mom. And so there's just that the thought of, okay, this could be a chance to be reborn.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Yeah, I am going right through perimenopause. Is like, it's a thing. I'm coming to terms. But part of that is like just really, like you're talking about reframing, is like reframing this process. Because I was like, this sucks. Like, this sucks. Like, hot flashes and like the hormonal. And now I'm like, I'm gonna be an old lady. Like, old ladies go through this. Like, I'm not old. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, Aericka, you are literally in the middle of your life right now. But reframing that, like, yes, I get to like have this now new transformation into just a different part of womanhood. Another thing that I've always been like in my masculine my entire life.
Yeah.
Very masculine, driven. So now, especially like a lot of the spiritual work is very feminine based, and like coming from a feminine place in how do you even describe it? Like the masculine and feminine, like they're in this, you have both in the same person. What is it, like your psyche, your
that, I think
your
that's
soul?
the word that I would use for it.
But yeah, so always been just in that masculine soul space, head space. Now having to come and cultivate this part of me has just been a really interesting journey for me to step into that feminine. And I'm like just very, very like stepping my toes into that. And it's very odd for me. It's very weird for me to go through that.
Are there things that you do regularly to try and like be mindful of that, or to bring that to the present so that you can experience that?
I think, recently changing jobs and letting go of having to work 50 plus hours a week, and being in a very money driven, like, I need to make money, I need to work, I need to, like, this is my identity, you know, I need to be in charge, I need to be doing these things, and kind of like stepping back. And I recently just kind of changed to just working from home, working half days, just really allowing myself to have time for myself and putting myself first. I think that's the start of it. You know, recognizing that my husband is masculine and can do a lot of things that I was doing, because I just happened to take over and just am a very like aggressive personality. So I think trying to like step back and put faith in him, not that I didn't have faith, but in my own head kind of, you know, kind of put faith in his masculinity. I think I have started to try to work on that feminine. If anybody has any ideas on how to work on your feminine more, please, love to hear it, because I am definitely in this journey in that aspect. So
you know, I think it's really interesting that, because we've talked about, personally, you and I have had this conversation before on like the masculine and the feminine. And just as we're talking about it now, what's coming to mind for me, or the word that keeps popping up, is like independent. And for me, that's how my masculine has shown up. Yes. I need to be independent. I need to be reliant on me.
Yes.
And that's it. That being said, I have been in this relationship for 21 years. We are handling things together. We make sure everything is done together, right? Like, it gets done, but I have to make sure my piece is done. In 21 years, I have not asked him for, you know, for help paying a bill, or for support in any of these areas. It's kind of like, no, I got it. I'm going to show up. You're going to show up.
Yep.
And we'll get it done. But we're not going to rely on one another.
Which is weird, right? Because like you said, you've been together for like 20 plus years. Like, but I'm in the same way.
Yeah.
My husband and I met late in life. Like, I was in my mid 30s when we met. So, and I had been very single prior to that, and fiercely independent my entire life. So I do the same thing. We have separate bank accounts, separate. I did go through a period a few years ago, which also kind of went into that like dark night of soul depression thing that we talked about last time, where I wasn't making enough money. And I was like, and I had always made more money than him. So like, it was like it was so hard to even tell him that I needed to ask for money. Not that he was against it anyway. Like, it's not that he was ever be like, no, you can't have money. But in my own head, that was a loss of independence. It was a weakness. You know what I mean? Like all this stuff. So it's, like very, like you said, very independent, 100%, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Got myself this far. You got yourself this far. We're doing great. But, we can let go a little.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
We could be taken care of. Please. At least in some capacity.
Somebody needs to tell me. I think, sometimes I want to be in that space. I want to be softer. I want to be and be perceived that way. But it's really hard to like do when you don't know how to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And we talked about in the past, like ourselves, is like that change in what is our partner going to think? Are they still going to be attracted to me because they met me as this independent, like go-getter, like, aggressive personality? Is that what they like about me? I mean, I don't know.
Gosh.
And
in the times that we've posed that question, I still have never brought that question home and been like, hey, babe, what would you think about me if XYZ? Like, it's almost like I'm nervous to find out.
But how do you pose that question? Like, hey, if I just suddenly turned really feminine and needed you, what would you think? I mean, like, what would you say?
Yeah.
I haven't either. I have, brought to him, hey, I'm going to switch jobs. And are you okay with that? And his exact words were, so long as you make money. And I was like, okay, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And he's not, I mean, obviously we have to have a lifestyle,
Right.
We're at a realm that we suddenly don't have money. It'd be a problem. But, I think he's also scarred from when I didn't make money before too. So, but, I mean, how do you compose that? Maybe we should meditate on that.
If I can get meditation into my practice on a regular basis, I absolutely will.
Well, so in the shamanic practice, we journey on things. And I'm still learning kind of what that means as far as how to use journeying. But so I could just hear like my mentor saying, journey about it. So like that would mean I would go to my spirit animal or my teacher and say, hey, I have this question. That's, you know what? I need to write that down.
Make note now.
I have been wondering what I need to journey about. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else that you like do?
I think I've mentioned the mindfulness that can be like so many things, and it can mean so many things for different people. So I just wanted to kind of expand upon that because for me, when I first learned about mindfulness and learned of it from a mental health standpoint, being a therapist, there was this idea that it needs to be like perfect in some way. You have to do it perfectly. You have to always be aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what's going on around you. And that can be really like overwhelming.
Adds to the anxiety you already have.
Yeah. It's like I'm already thinking about my thoughts and my anxiety and everybody around me. So how could I be thinking about this more? What it has become for me is a little bit different. It's actually not about cognition at all. It's not about your thoughts. It's not about, for me, it's not about my thoughts. It's not about what I'm thinking or how I think other people are thinking. And it is so much about my sensations, the experiences that I'm having somatically.
Like what?
Uh, like I think about the reflexes that my body has on a daily basis. And this could be something like walking out into, if I'm leaving my house and I'm walking outside, I'm automatically looking around. And even though I'm having thoughts about what I'm seeing, I'm taking in the visuals. I'm taking in that experience auditorily. Like, what am I hearing? What am I feeling right now? And all of that is giving me information about how I'm perceiving that experience. And like me walking outside is relatively low on the risk level.
Right.
It doesn't really mean that much. But I try to be more in tune and mindful about what my body's experiencing when I'm interacting with other people. Am I having goosebumps? Am I having a slight flutter? If there's a pit in my stomach, that is so much easier for me to identify, like, this doesn't feel right.
Right.
But maybe I'm having much smaller signals and I don't even realize that it's happening because I'm not paying attention to them. So maybe I'm having, actually what I've been experiencing a lot lately is when I'm interacting with people, I will have a kind of like tingling all through my legs and my arms. And just being aware of that, regardless of what it means, it could mean nothing, it could mean everything. Just taking out the meaning and just being aware that I'm having that experience is what mindfulness is for me.
And being like present.
Yeah.
In the moment. It's interesting that you said that because I have been feeling like those type of things for a while, and we talked about them before, like in the past, and you were like, oh, I don't feel like you do, but yeah. Yeah, you are. You just have to pay attention.
Yes, but that I think is the biggest thing, is because we're constantly interpreting everything that we go through. What does this mean for me? And, how am I being perceived, or how am I perceiving, and what thoughts am I having? And it goes on and on and on. And so we kind of like only take that piece and we block out everything else. But with every thought that we have, we're having an experience.
Right.
And so we have
There's a body
yeah
reflection to that. Be it good, bad, little, big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed is that because I am an anxious person, I can very easily pick up on when I don't feel right. But if you asked me what feeling right felt like, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't describe that to you. So being more in tune with my body and more mindful lets me know, like, oh, this is what feeling neutral feels like. This is what feeling grounded feels like. I could probably describe it a little bit better now than, the heaviness in my chest, or my heart racing, or that pit in my stomach. Those things I know.
Probably because, it's that fight or flight. Because again, one of your anxiety, but two, and like, from survival, from we're made to know this is bad, you need to be doing something about it. So we're more in tuned to that process than if you feel fine, then why are we worried about it? Like, why do we care about it? But when it comes to this type of stuff, we need to know all of the above. Yeah. So that then we can tap into it and like, what does that mean? And know, okay, when I get goosebumps, that means that I'm on the right track. Right. Or, that something's truthful, or, whatever the situation is.
Yeah. And what I've realized is, like, because I think I used to think about it from the perspective of like, it could be anything. If I'm getting goosebumps, maybe I'm sitting in front of a vent and I'm cold. But I know the difference now. I can feel the difference for me now. Yeah. And it's like, oh, actually, no, you're not getting goosebumps because you're cold. You're not cold. But you're getting goosebumps because this is resonating with you. Because this means something for you. Because this is, good, bad, and different, whatever the case is. So I do think that makes a huge difference in my daily practice, because it is something that I like tune into purposefully, intentionally. And with that, being able to reset. When do I need to put something in a container and walk away?
There
When
you
do I
go.
need to shift focus? When do I need to show up differently?
Mm-hmm.
When do I need to, whether it's for other people or for myself, when do I need to do those things?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So mindfulness for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that more recently I've been really practicing for me, is just being very aware of like my space at home. So now I work from home, making sure my desk is clean and organized, and my room is not messy, and just being very mindful of that. Because before I'd be like, oh, I'll clean that later. But now I'm like, as soon as I get that it needs cleaned, I do it.
Yeah.
Or that's a big thing. Or if I get the idea that I need to text my mom, being very mindful that, okay, I heard that, let's do that now.
Yeah.
Type situation.
Yeah.
And with having the space organized and being very mindful of that, making my bed. I was never a bed maker. Now I make my bed, close my closet, like just all these different things. Because for me, when the space is nice and clean and open, then I'm not stressed, for one. And two, I feel like my practice, my spiritual practice is much more easy to come.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the distractions of these different things in my way. Being mindful on how I'm thinking about things, being very aware of negative energy, negative thoughts, negative vibrations, and reframing those in those moments, trying not to dwell on those, looking at how can I reframe those to a more positive thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm cold, I'm cranky, I'm this, I'm that, I don't want to be here. But reframing, no, I get to be having this experience.
Yeah.
What am I learning from this experience? Those type of things. That's kind of what mindfulness means for me. So it's interesting that it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Different approach to mindfulness, which, like you said, whenever with the mental health world, buzzwords like meditation, journaling, mindfulness, reframing, like what the fuck does that mean? I don't know what those words mean. And I feel like now, more recently, I'm like, oh, I know what reframing really means to me and how to use it.
I think that's one of the most important pieces of all of it, is being able to define it for you. And that, I don't mean like taking it completely out of context and, throwing it on its head and saying that mindfulness is, getting your heart rate really high or doing things that are like wild, but being able to find a space for you that it resonates. Because if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't feel right, if you're not able to connect with it, then you're not going to be able to use it. How can you be mindful when you don't feel like mindfulness is for you? Right? And so finding what makes sense for you and how you use it in that way.
The other thing I do is really listening to my gut. Because, I one of my gifts, if we're talking about gifts, is I think I'm like claircognizant, and just being really mindful of and listening to, you name it. It's like, trying to think of an example that's kind of benign but normal. Oh, I should grab my jacket because it's going to be cold whenever the forecast says that it's going to be 78 and sunny, but I know I need to take my jacket because it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
And then if I ignore that, then it turns into, it plummeted in a windstorm or whatever. Now I'm freezing, it's like just weird stuff like that I've been really trying to listen.
Yeah.
Not ignore. Yeah. Or I can't come up with an example, but just stuff like that. Just really just listening to my own thoughts. And it could just be like, oh, just something you should know anyways. You should just listen to anyways. But so many times I've not listened to those type of things. And it was like, well, should have. So now I'm just being more aware of those.
Yeah. I think that's a big deal too, because we do take our previous experiences and use that to inform, our current situations and future experiences. And so it could be like, for example, just using the same example that you used, when I go on a day trip, let's say that I'm going on a day trip and I'm walking. So every year we go to New York for Comic-Con. Every year I take an extra pair of socks. That is not the same as, getting that message like, you should bring this.
Yes,
you should be prepared
Okay.
in this way. It's a different experience.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to describe this. Like, I know what I'm saying in my own head, but like, I can't. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Are there other things that you feel like that you do or that you feel like need to be incorporated more?
I knew I needed to be doing all these things for a long time now, but like I said before, I was working like a ton of hours and I just wasn't using it as much as I have been more recently, trying to be very mindful of starting this practice. But meditating, I was mostly meditating at night and not necessarily with any sort of intention. It was more for relaxation. And what I was finding is that when I did do that, I was getting like downloads or visions or things that like were relevant and I needed to know. So more recently, I've been trying to actually meditate outside of before going to sleep.
Yeah.
Which is much harder. I don't know if you've tried that. It is much harder because you're awake. You're not at night, and first thing in the morning is when actually like that veil between the worlds is thinner. So just doing it in the middle of the day is
hard.
Is a lot harder. Yeah. And they always say, set an intention. And part of my problem too is lately I'm like, I don't know what my intention is. So like it's hard for me to set an intention to then meditate on, to then have a thought process about. But I read or am reading this book. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the guy's name right now. That's terrible. But he talks about how you don't have to do like an hour a day. That'd be great. But it's even if you get 5 minutes in, it's more kind of training your brain to then be able to pivot when it is in a situation it doesn't like, or when it is in a thought process it doesn't like. So like, let's say you're meditating, you're trying to meditate for 20 minutes, but your mind's going this way, its mind's going that way, this way, and that way. He's talking about if you can just work on shifting back each time you shift back, it's training your brain that you can do that.
Yeah.
And it's like a positive thing.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So, meditating. I don't journal as much as I should. I mostly journal on things like the downloads I get or the vision I get. That one I do a lot of, just so I can kind of look back and say, how did I do that? What was the situation? What did I think about that? But I'm trying to do that a little bit more, like you said, in the morning, just waking up and journaling.
Yeah.
And I did start doing daily affirmations.
Okay.
So ideally, I would like be doing those first things in the morning, but sometimes I don't. But usually, like when I'm brushing my teeth or whatever, I listen to these daily affirmations currently about abundance. So I get some money.
Yes.
So I'm doing that one. I kind of like those ones. So really trying to incorporate those. But one of the things that's helped me the most is we did this severance work in the shamanism class. And what that is you do kind of these rituals to empty your cup. And meaning like get rid of things that don't serve you, get rid of things that are lowering your vibration, any sort of like negativity or things you don't need.
Yeah. And
so that in the idea that you empty this cup so that you then have room for positive things, for teachings, for love, for light, these other things. And we were doing these severance work where just forgiving, letting go, just being really intensely in that. And I'll tell you what, that has been one of the most helpful things. And I really feel like my cup is much lighter, much emptier. So now I can start putting in the good stuff. So
I like that. we haven't really talked about that, but I think that's just one of the things that comes to mind for me as you're talking about it is like even just making room for the stuff you want in there. Right? Because so often we walk around with our cups full or overflowing of other people's crap.
Right.
Or of stuff that isn't serving us. And then you can't add to that. You can't add the stuff that you want to that. You have to be able to empty it out.
Yeah. I think it was the Dalai Lama who gave like a visual of that. Like he was like, it was like someone was teaching. He was teaching somebody that was like, okay, put the water in.
Yeah.
It was like a full cup. And he's like, well, put the water in. But why aren't you putting why can't they put you the water in? You know? And he's like, well, it's too full. Yeah, exactly. You have to empty it to then put new stuff in it.
Yeah.
So, and when I started the work, I could feel how heavy my cup was. And I just love the visual, first of all. Like the visual of the cup, like, really works for me. But I just like feel like this like heaviness, this tightness in my chest. Just like this feeling.
Yeah.
And I have done a lot of work through therapy and, you know, some other things and Reiki and stuff like that to get rid of a lot of like the, you know, the bad stuff that I've been carrying. But this really helped.
I love the idea of having some sort of ceremony or ritual on a daily basis of things that you can do. And I do some things on my own. But when you do something like that, are you doing like something like this big practice every day, like for the severance, or does it look different because of, you know, your day or whatever?
That I think is more ceremony. It's like you really want to get rid of something big. Ish. Or multiple things at once, you know, something that's really holding you back or really like affecting you. Where I think like an everyday type of practice would be more like meditating on releasing it.
Yeah.
Or the Dalai Lama actually, there's where he there's a forgiveness one, a forgiveness mantra and forgiveness meditation. And he actually says it every day.
Oh yeah.
And so you could say that and put it towards somebody or yourself. So I think that would be something that is more on a smaller scale that you could do every day. We keep going to meditation and mindfulness. I feel like they just like really go together.
Yeah.
I think you have to have that, I guess, in some capacity, whatever it looks like to you.
Yeah. There's this type of therapy, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, that uses mindfulness as its base. And when learning about DBT, they always say mindfulness is how you do things.
Okay.
And then there's like what skills, what are the things that you're going to do, and you're going to do them mindfully. So I do believe that mindfulness needs to be a foundation piece. It needs to be a core of how you do it, and it can look different from person to person like we talked about, but it needs to be one of the like foundation pieces, the building blocks, so that you can continue to build your practices.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's pretty cool. I'm gonna, I think, make note of like some of those things to be able to release, because I don't, but letting things go is probably one of the really important pieces that we need to be able to do, because we can hold on to so much without even knowing about it.
So part of what we do is to start that process is to take time to just kind of journal about it or meditate about it first, so you can kind of know what it is that you're trying to do if you don't really have an idea yet. So that's part of it. But
yeah. Oh, I have some ideas. Okay. I think I would like for us to like expand upon this and maybe do something more with it, because there's thoughts that are just like coming to mind right now, and I'm like, oh, what about this? And if you do that, and
definitely. I mean, we do a whole severance, like cup emptying segment. Like there's so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So wrapping it back around to where we started, do you have anything that you do before you start the journaling? Like, do you have like a process of like clearing or like light up candle, like anything like that?
Yes. So I do a couple different things, and none of them are major. Like, they don't take a lot of time or whatever. I do a physical cleaning. I will wash my hands. I will clear my desk. Actually, I normally am sitting in my chair, so I will clear my chair up. And I like the ritual piece of like washing my hands before that, and just like, okay, I'm coming in with a clean mindset. And depending on what I'm journaling about, I'm going into that either straight into the journaling, or I'm doing a card pull. I am almost always doing a little prayer. I guess that's what it would be called, as a prayer. But I'm just calling for the energy to process, to write, to communicate, to come to whatever.
And who are you saying that to? Like, just the universe, source?
Yes.
Spirit guides? Like,
so, yes. Yes.
You're like, yes, all of the above. Whoever wants to help.
I don't leave the door like wide open.
Yeah.
But I am sending out that prayer to source, the universe, spirit. And I am asking specifically for any of my ancestors. I have no idea if they're there. I have no idea if they're listening, but I am asking for them, and I will always thank them after. I always wrap that up with a thank you, and I hope that they're there. That is part of the reason why I'm doing this, is trying to connect more.
I was gonna say, do you ever feel like they're there? Like, do you ever get like a sense that like, yeah, someone was here today? Like, do you ever get that?
I do. I will get that sometimes, and I'm like, I'm still in that space where I'm like, was there not? Because I can't say like it was this person. It was grandma. Like, I have no idea if it was grandma. I would like to think so, but
right.
Who knows? It could be somebody I've never met before. It could. I have no idea. So I am specific in who I am speaking to, even though I don't know who I'm speaking to.
I think that makes sense, because like you said, you don't want to just like open it to like anything, because anything might just walk in, which is always my fear. But yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's part of my process. So I do those things, and then occasionally, and usually this is part of my reset after. Sometimes it happens before if I need to reset before, but if I'm feeling like I'm off for whatever reason, I'm not feeling the journaling, I'm not able to connect, I didn't like the energy or feel of it, I will do a cleanse of my space. I will, vacuum or mop or wash sheets or whatever the case is. Like, that stuff happens anyway, but specifically when things are feeling off, I will do that.
That's interesting. I like that. Like, literally cleaning.
Yeah.
I am literally cleaning this bad energy out of my life.
Yeah. I've been recently, I think my family might think I'm crazy. I don't know. All the people that live in this house.
I'm convinced that is definitely happening in my house.
Yeah. No, I think they think I am, but it's fine. But I have recently been like, encouraging them to do the same. So if they wake up and they're like, oh, I had a bad night, I couldn't sleep, I had bad dreams, clean your space, wash your sheets, organize, wipe things down, put things where they belong, make it a better space.
If anything, it's like, again, it's that organization.
Yeah.
It's cleaner. You're not distracted. And like, I personally get anxious over clutter. So, like just kind of that. I don't know who doesn't feel better with that. Like, they may not think that they do, but I'm sorry. Like, you're going to feel better when your space is neat and clean and ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people do thrive in chaos.
my son. He's gotten a little bit better. Ish. Teeny tiny.
He still has time to develop that part of himself.
Lord. I hope it does at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to have a ritual, whatever, before I start anything. If I'm doing one of those big things, like if I'm doing an actual ceremony, I'll do shamanic drumming or rattling and call in the spirits from the four directions, my power animal, my spirit, my teacher in human form. I often have Archangel Michael with me. He's one of my archangels. And I always have an owl who's not my power animal, strangely enough, but there's always an owl with me that comes, hangs out.
Yeah.
And I'll call them to me and ask them to like be with me and protect me and, give me guidance. And then I'll go into like the ritual. But it was like a kind of day-to-day thing. I still do call my power animal and my spirits to be with me. And ask for guidance, and then kind of do the meditation or the journaling or the affirmation is just like quickly ask them, and like you said, always thank them and, bless them and say, I release you.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that there's more to this. I think like I can think of more things that aren't necessarily part of my day-to-day practice or even a ceremony or ritual, but things that I've heard of or things that I'm interested in or things that could benefit in certain circumstances. So maybe we'll do more on that piece too.
Yeah, I'd love to do a severance one because that's like super big or big ceremony or big thoughts on things. But,
cool.
Yeah. So are we bringing it in?
Yeah. Let's
call on it.
Yes.
I think we covered a lot.
I think so too. And I'm sure we could always come back to it if we feel called to, or if anybody has any questions or thoughts that we can expand upon.
Yeah, definitely. If questions, please let us know and try to answer them best we can. So, all right. So I'm going to call it, and thanks for hanging out with us. And please like and review on what you listen to us on. And we're trying to do this on a weekly basis. And
yeah. So till next week, we'll see you then.
Yep. See ya.